Hey, it's been a minute since we've been back to this series. The PATHKIEW Island cast once again finds its way to be completely difficult to work with, as redrawing these designs with their stereotypes was very interesting to say the least. I think it's better if you just see it than me try to talk about it. In case you haven't seen the last two videos I've done on this, you don't have to see them for any context on this one. Basically the idea is that I randomly chose two characters from PATHKIEW Island, one being the character design I was going to use, and one being the stereotype design that I was going to try and implement onto the character design. God, that never makes any more sense when I explain it. Just watch the video, you'll get it pretty quickly. The first design I'll start with is the one you saw in the thumbnail because you've already seen it, so there's not much point in delaying that, which was Topher's character design mixed with Scarlett's stereotype. I didn't actually struggle with this one that much. I feel like it came pretty naturally to me, but I also don't think I did that much creatively, so that's probably why it came so naturally. But yeah, here it is. I changed a couple of things with Topher's face. I gave him the wider eyes that Scarlett has, and I gave him naturally Scarlett's glasses because he's supposed to look a bit like a nerd. But other than that, not much has changed. Altered Topher's, I don't know, comb up, cool TV guy hair into a middle part, because I feel like that was a very uniform hairstyle similar to Scarlett's bun. I also took a lot of inspiration from Milo from Atlantis, if you've ever seen that. Didn't mess with the shirt really at all. I gave it some different line work in different colors because I feel like I wanted him to look a bit more like a bookworm. Also, the lines around the collar and arms were something from Scarlett's design that I wanted to add onto his. Other than that, I just added a lighter red rounded line in the middle from Topher's design because I feel like the roundness of it kind of complemented Topher's hair a lot more here. And yeah, that's about it. Didn't mess with anything on his pants and shoes. I just color coded them a bit more to match Scarlett, the red shoes to match his shirt. And the pants color is Scarlett's sweater because that's another part of her design I wanted to add onto his. Like I said, I didn't do a ton of this design. I feel like most of it is pretty true to Topher's design. The clothes are basically the same with the exception of some tinkering, and then I mainly just added Scarlett's glasses and a different hair design. But despite it looking so similar to Scarlett's, I really do like it. I think Topher looks very nice in this approach, and I could definitely see him, as much as I wouldn't like the idea of him matching Scarlett's character, secret, evil, hair up, spiky, cartoonishly villainous character. I could definitely see someone so nerdly like this design, very blatantly stereotypical nerd design, having that approach later in the season. I didn't create a design for him being like eval whatever because I felt that was how easily he moved over into this nerdish stylish look, which makes sense because his design is already very proper and well dressed. Next up was Dave's character design mixed with Jasmine's stereotype. What a challenge this one was. I feel like a lot of Jasmine's character is revolved around the fact that she is this very tall and intimidating woman. So now mixing it with this small, scrawny guy, definitely a lot I struggled to work with here. Anyways, here's what I came up with. Yeah, I took a fair amount of inspiration from Crocodile Dundee Australian survivalist vibes here. Didn't alter the face too much. I gave him some wider eyes to match Jasmine's happier look and a smile on his face to also match Jasmine's smiley look. I tried to fade out some of his hair to a buzz cut because I feel like that practically matches this outdoors look because, he'd be exploring a lot and his hair would get hot back there, so he'd want to buzz it. I implemented Jasmine's hair onto his design because obviously that was a big part that I wanted to use. Color coded it to match a bit more of Dave, and little I don't know what you'd call them, circle, chip, token sort of things on his hat rim are things I took inspiration from a Crocodile Dundee hat, and I also took inspiration from Crocodile Dundee when it comes to his armband and his vest. I used the little pockets on Jasmine's jacket design onto Dave's here. I just color coded them to match his vest. The Crocodile Dundee design I took inspiration from was originally shirtless, but I didn't really feel like giving Dave abs, so I just gave him a shirt and then added a pretty basic knife design. It's pretty hard to see, but if you look really closely at his belt, I tried to make it green and give it a little bit of scale so that it matched a snakeskin belt design. Obviously that goes in line with this sort of stereotype. I didn't really know what to do with his pants. I just kind of kept his original jeans but color coded them to match the shirt and hair. And I also didn't mess with the shoes that much because I didn't really know what to do, and I also kept Jasmine's boots for her design, so I didn't want Dave's to also have these hefty boots and match hers too much, so I felt like it was fine there. As weird as this design is and how much it doesn't really fit Dave at all, from a character standpoint I could definitely see this matching Dave, although it would be opposite of Jasmine's, where instead of him being a very strong imposing figure who's trying to come off friendly, I think you'd have to lean more a lot into the Australian stereotype of trying to be this strong, manageable figure, but nobody really taking him seriously because he doesn't look very threatening. So even though from a personality stereotype, I think they kind of have to invert each other, I do think it works well enough and actually adds some interest to this character, which is otherwise very one note. Next up is Scarlett's character design, mix of Rodney's stereotype. You know what, I'll just show you and talk about it. Yeah, she looks interesting like this. I didn't change anything when it came to her facial expressions, as I feel like it matched Rodney pretty well already. However, I did give her some of the not pimples, what's it called? Freckles that Rodney has on his face, because I thought it was a nice detail. Also, I got rid of them for Rodney's design, so I figured it makes sense to put him here. Obviously, I let her hair fall a bit more freely and tried to add a lot more spiky points to it to match Rodney's spiked up hair. For the clothes, I took heavy inspiration from Rodney's overalls and undershirt already, just by giving her the same sort of thing. I did choose to cut him off into overall shorts though, as I feel like that matches her a bit better than the big hefty pants that Rodney has, because Rodney's obviously a very big boy and Scarlett isn't, so I didn't want to make her look any smaller by having the pants look very loose fitting. And the footwear is about as typical gardener rubber boots footwear as you could get, because that matches the farmer look obviously a ton. I personally really enjoy this look on Scarlett. I think she looks really cute with her hair down like this. Looking back at it, I do think I'd have the overalls be a bit higher up on her chest. I think it's like too low. It's like at just the underneath of where, you know, which doesn't really match the look. It does match on Rodney because he's, again, a big boy, but other than that very tiny thing with her overalls, I really do enjoy this look on Scarlett. Next up is Mac's character design mixed with Sammy's stereotype design. Now, there's a lot to difficult things here with Sammy's stereotype because it's very heavily correlated with Amy's stereotype, but now with Max having Sammy's stereotype design, somebody else is gonna have Amy's stereotype design, but they aren't really truly connected because they're not siblings like Amy and Sammy were, and in this world, Amy and Sammy are still twins, you'll see that later. But I struggled a lot with trying to figure out how I designed Max in Sammy's sort of stereotype, because her clothes don't really represent her stereotype, and she doesn't really have a stereotype outside of being a twin to Amy. Yeah, I'll show the design first and explain my thought process for this. Yeah, he looks very, stuff in a locker kind of kid. Essentially, the idea I try to go with is that this design and the design that got Amy's stereotype both know each other, and the design that got Amy's stereotype is a bully to this character. Like, they aren't siblings or cousins or anything like that, but they know each other and they go to the same high school or whatever, and that version bullies this version. So I try to just make Max look very innocent, very nuclear high school kid, nerdish type, because that's kind of what Sammy is, not in like the nerdish type, but she is a very nuclear high school cheerleader sort of design, so I try to match that with Max here. I altered his facial expression to make him look more friendly, and I tried to get rid of all the upper line indents in his hair that's on the original design to make his bowl cut look a bit more clean. I also reverted his purple hair color back to his black hair color, which is his canon original hair color, because I don't think that this design would dye their hair purple, because that doesn't really make sense. So the shirt is a pretty nuclear design. I gave him, I guess what you'd call sleeveless jumper over the normal light gray button-up shirt, and his lower half doesn't have a ton to talk about. I didn't change any shapes or anything like that. I just color coded it to light blue and normal black shoes to match his hair. I did try to challenge myself a bit with the orange cross-line patterns on his jumper. There wasn't really any other design that primarily used orange, so I figured it worked especially well here with Max. I don't really know what to make of this design. Seeing Max like this, it's weird because it matches really well, but it looks so odd. There wasn't a lot of wiggle room I had to work with here, especially since the design I did for Amy's stereotype was actually one I did first, and let's just say they aren't a typical bully, so I had to try and really exemplify the fact that he is not remotely intimidating. He's just very friendly, very dorky, a little out of touch, kind of like Sammy. Next up is Leonard's character design mixed with Max's stereotype. God, could it get more weird? Yeah, no, I don't think there's anything I can say to preface this. Yeah, it's weird. It kind of blends well. Didn't change anything with Leonard's face except for making his eyebrows into that furrowing evil look that Max has. I didn't really know what was going on underneath his hood. I didn't know what kind of hair he had, or if any. I didn't feel like anything really matched him when I tried putting it on him, so I just decided to leave him with a buzz cut because I feel like that matches him anyways. Got rid of the fake beard because obviously fake beard doesn't make sense for this sort of character. I also decided to take the hood down just because I thought the hood was a bit extra. It just felt like too much, which is saying a lot considering what we're already looking at and what Max is and what Leonard is. It just still felt like too much with the hood, so I decided to bring it down. If you look around his chest, he has a little skull necklace because it feels like a very lame thing for him to have to try and say he's edgy. That's definitely the kind of vibes I get from this, like an edgelord thinking they're super misunderstood and diabolical, you know? I kept the stripe and circles that Leonard originally has. I did get rid of that little bit of a folded clove part around his stomach because the Max design tries to look a little bit like formal and orderly, so I figured that this version of Leonard would probably tuck his shirt in. Not that it matters. I also recolored the design to purple because dark purple was a much nicer evil color than the green I could try to use from Leonard. Also, the purple from Max's purple hair worked pretty nicely because I also wasn't using the purple from Max's hair. And in the same tune of trying to look more dark and edgy, I gave him a purple X ring because do with a little more jewelry, and that felt like such a lame thing for him to have. It just couldn't help it. And then, you know, besides that, I recolored his cloak into black because it matched more of the evil. Weirdly enough, I feel like this design suits Leonard really well. I don't really know what I would have done with Leonard had he got like anybody else, because there's so much about his character shape that is ambiguous. You don't really see where his legs are, you don't really see how big his feet are, what kind of shoes he wears, where his arms and shoulders even meet, how wide his torso is. You don't have a lot to go off of here. So the fact that he got a design like this where I was allowed to still keep these robes he has and make it into an evil design, it looks really odd. That goes without saying, but to be fair, the original Leonard design looks pretty odd, so it's not really out of tune. Next up, we have Beardo's character design mixed with Shawn's stereotype. Funnily enough, I feel like Beardo already matches a lot of this. You know, he kind of has that scruffy, disgruntled look that Shawn already has, and his hair is really unkept like Shawn is, so I didn't feel like there was a lot of leaps I had to really take with this. It came very naturally to me. I changed his eyes to match a bit more of Shawn, having this dead, tired look with the baggy eyes. I decided to get rid of his beard because I didn't really know how to make it work. I had the idea of maybe making a more full beard, but the issue there is that I still want Beardo to look like a teenager. But with the full beard, he started to look like 20s, 30s, leaving the vision that I wanted to have. So I decided to get rid of the beard and just give him stubble instead because it still matches the look. Honestly, he'd be called Beardo in this world now, not that it even matters. I don't know what Beardo's real name is. I'm sure he has one in like Total Drama canon, but I don't know, I don't care. Maybe I'll add it here and post edit. I decided to give him a bandana because I wanted him to have some sort of like hat accessory element that Shawn has, but I couldn't give him the beanie because he just has an abundance of hair. So I decided that the headband was a really simple survivalist craze sort of thing to have. And I also added a 4 with a blood splotch there, which is supposed to be a reference to Left 4 Dead because the 4 in Left 4 Dead has that sort of design, but I couldn't use the original one so it doesn't look too similar. It doesn't matter, I just thought it was a nice zombie reference to add. As for the torso, I took a lot of inspiration from Shawn's design. The undershirt is the same sort of design that he has. Around his wrist he has the same lines, and I believe the color is the same as Shawn's. I can't tell, it actually looks a bit darker here. I think it might be Beardo's, don't know, but either way I took a lot of inspiration there from Shawn. And I also decided to add the little, I don't know what that stain is on Beardo. I'm gonna assume it's like an oil stain or something because it looks like he'd be a bit of a mechanic. I don't want to assume it's anything grosser than that. It doesn't matter what it is, just decided to give him that stain in his shirt. I decided to have the vest zipped up on Beardo. It looked a bit weirder when it was just out because it almost like, it sounds weird, but it almost kind of looked stylish on Beardo when it was open like that. So I decided to have it more uniform and look more centered around keeping him warm and a survivalist aspect. And the pants I did not change a lot. I added the pockets that Shawn has from his design onto Beardo's pants, and I also noticed that his shoes, instead of being black and white, has a bit of that like gross yellow color that Shawn has on his shoes because he's supposed to look unkept. And I decided to go for blue for the bandana and vest instead of the orange because I already used the orange for Max on his design and I think it matched Max a lot more than it matched Beardo. The blue complements Beardo's colors a bit more than orange would have. I don't think there's much else to say. This design came really naturally, I feel. Beardo in a lot of ways already kind of matches Shawn's stereotype. He's not like tidy and orderly, and neither is Shawn, so there wasn't a whole lot to alter here, and I kind of like when it lines up like that, but not a ton creatively done either, so take that as you will. Next up is Ella's character design mixed with Dave's stereotype. I don't feel like there's a lot for me to say with this. I'm just gonna show it. Yeah, it's really basic. The only thing I changed on her face was making her smile a bit more neutral like Dave's face. For some reason her eyebrows already match really well and her eyes also are very similar to Dave, so didn't feel like I had to alter much more there. I messed with her hair a good bit just because I already have some other characters that use a lot of circular, bulbous shapes in their design. The version of Ella didn't really need that sort of hairstyle anymore, so I messed with it a little bit, making it a bit more flat, let loose, and I also added a little bit of swivel curve on the hair above her eyes that are... I also got rid of the bow for her hairband because the bow is very, you know, princess-esque, but this design isn't trying to be anything special really, so got rid of that. I didn't really know what to do with her shirt. The issue with Dave's design is that Dave is not really a typical stereotype. The whole point of his character is that he's the normal one, so his design isn't really like outspoken in any singular way. I didn't really know what to do with Ella, and as a result, her torso is pretty basic. She just has like this yellow shirt that I decided to use for her because no other design was really using this yellow and I thought it looked nice on her. And I also gave her this little corset black vest because her design was looking just so bland that I felt like she needed something. And if you look really closely, you can notice she has a little heart imprint on that corset. I just added that because Dave is kind of like another part of his character. He's obsessively in love, so I figured that's like a little foreshadowing to, I don't know who Ella would obsess over in this world. Maybe Sky? I don't know. You can be the judge of that when you see Sky's redesign, but yeah, whatever. If that's a thing, then the heart's there for that. And not much to write about with the pants either. They're just jeans. I added a gray belt, and they're jeans. And same idea with Ella's shoes. I considered redesigning her shoes just because I wanted to have something more here because I feel like her design is so bland. But I actually think Ella's original design for shoes really matched this sort of like orderly, bland character because another tiny element you can latch onto for Dave is that he's a germaphobe. So these nice, tidy, orderly shoes looked fitting for her. Also, I just didn't know what else you do. You could give her the high tops, I guess, from Dave. But I don't know. I think those would have looked pretty weird on Ella because she's very small, so it would have looked kind of out of place. I don't hate the way Ella looks like this. I do like her hair stylized different like this. I just wish there was something else I could have done to make her look different because she just looks so painfully bland. And I don't hate myself for that because when I look to the left, Dave's design is painfully bland. I just feel especially with Ella's original design being so creative. It's very pretty. It's very outlandish. I feel like Ella's now design is just meh is the one word I'd use to say it. Next up is Sammy's character design with Beardo stereotype. This one was really difficult to envision because like all the things I said for Beardo about Shawn of being naturally not very tidy, it's a lot harder to envision Sammy as that because her outfit is so cute, it's so clean, it's so nice. So I didn't know how to really envision her in something like Beardo's wardrobe. First thing I did was get rid of her lipstick because I obviously don't imagine this version of Sammy who would be a lot more shy, weird, be a lot more beatboxing is the main thing. I don't know how beatboxing works with lipstick, but I imagine to her it would be kind of like a waste of time because it's going to get dirty. I'm probably thinking about that part too much, but you know what I mean. It's just lipstick out of it doesn't really match the look as much. I also tried to crease her eyelids on her eyes a little bit, like how Beardo has of him. It looks a little weird on Sammy, and I don't know why. I think it was a little too dark compared to her natural skin color, but it's whatever, it's fine. I didn't really mess with her hair too much. It was just at the end I made it triangular instead of the straight, perfect cut, because Beardo has all those imperfections in his hair, so it made sense. And I decided to give her a red beanie, as I felt like it kind of matched the rapper sound machine look. And because, I guess a tiny bit of a spoiler, but Shawn's redesign isn't wearing a beanie anymore, so there was an open spot for that sort of headwear without it looking too similar to him, so I took it. For a shirt, I felt like it was obvious you go for a tank top. I didn't feel like a t-shirt or a long sleeve really did the same justice of trying to make this character look unkept. I mean, it would have probably looked fine, but we also didn't have that many characters wearing tank tops anyways, so this redesign stood out in that way. Made it color-coded to match the beanie, and I decided to add a little music note on her shirt because Beardo sings that he's a sound machine, so music note's kind of a given. Now the pants, I very much try to go for loose-fitting sweatpants. I don't think the design is that good. I think it's a little too flowy, but I didn't want it to sculpt to Sammy's legs because her original legs are well defined, and I don't think that sort of figure matches Beardo's characters. So I like the idea of gray sweatpants a lot more. I don't know what it is about there. I think maybe around the thighs is too loose and around the calves it should be tighter. It looks a little off, but yeah, that's what it is. And for her shoes, I obviously moved her out of her high heels into generic sneakers like Beardo's and made it color-coded to Sammy's hair. I also don't know if I actually moved her down enough, but I did move her character height down because she's not wearing the high heels anymore. It's like if you look at the eyes of her original design to the eyes of this one, they're a bit lower. I do think it should actually be lower looking at it now. It's whatever. I don't really hate this design that much. I think it looks a little weird. Something missing here to give it that extra touch to make it look like Beardo. But for what it is, I think it works fine of differentiating himself a lot from the original Sammy design. And since we covered Sammy's design, next up is Amy's character design mixed with Sky's stereotype. This one was a little troubling just for the simple fact that I don't really know what Sky's stereotype really is. Her stereotype is kind of just like athletic. That's basically it. So I just tried to make her look athletic in her clothing, which was an issue in itself because I've already had a lot of characters in my previous videos that have been in athletic wear. So I wanted to make sure this one looked different, and this is what I came up with. Same as Sammy's design, I got rid of the lipstick because I don't feel that this version of Amy would care about that. Just like Sky's character design doesn't seem to have lipstick. I don't know, those lips are a little dark, maybe she is. I don't feel like she would, so I didn't decide to have any lipstick for Amy. And besides that, I didn't change a ton about her face. I actually gave a design on her ear because her hair originally covers her ear, but I incorporated a little bit of Sky's design by having her hair tucked behind her ears, so that ear now needed to have a design, but besides that, the face was untouched. And like I said, for the hair, I got rid of those two strands that stick out and had them tucked behind her ear, and I decided to have her hair meet up a little bit more circular wise, like how Sky's does with that little circle part at the end, but I didn't create those little cuts in the hair just because it started to look a little bit too similar to Sammy's design at that point, and also there's a lot of other characters that already have those little cuts in their hair. I figured Amy having this sort of more clean design could abstain from that. For the top, I decided to give her this pretty low cut crop top because obviously it's very reminiscent of an athlete, but I also wanted that low cut because I feel like the hoodie altogether didn't really match Sky's sort of like shape and form, because Sky's design is pretty minimalist and it shows off a lot of her physique, which I imagine she's very proud of because she cares about that. So this version of Amy would also probably want to show off her gut and her physique. I did give her undershirt though because Sky also has this purple stripe across her shirt, so I wanted Amy to have a few more parts and colors to her top. I gave her white strings on her hoodie because hoodies have strings, but also because Sammy's design had white strings on her sweatpants, so I figured that was a nice little correlation scene between the two twins. For the pants, there's not much to talk about. Made them black yoga pants like Sky's to match, and I also decided to give her this little like purple V stripe because her pants looked a little bland without them. And for the shoes, I tried to match as much as I could to Sky's Converse. They don't look nearly as detailed as Sky's from the original, but she also has a lot smaller feet, so I decided not to stress about that too much. Overall, I also really enjoy this design. A little bland, but I don't think it had to be anything outlandish, and I really enjoy how this redesign and Sammy's redesign still kind of work with them as twins. Story there is obviously that they're very different even though they're twins. You know, Amy's very athletic, very outgoing, I imagine, and Sammy in this world would have been shy, and she's very creative, whereas I feel this redesign of Amy, much like Sky from the original, doesn't really sync a lot with her head in a creative fashion. She just kind of does what she needs to. So I enjoy how that story of them being twins can still match. Next up is Shawn's character design mixed with Ella's stereotype. This one was a really interesting challenge. I don't think I need to explain why. They're basically inverse of each other, and I was pretty lost in what to do, but I think it came out okay. I did a lot of tinkering with Shawn's face. I got rid of his like small little goatee because obviously in this case he's being a prince, and I feel like a prince would groom himself and not let himself have any weak facial hair. Also turned that frown right side around so that matched Ella's smile, and I altered a fair amount of his eyes, getting rid of the eye bags to make him look more youthful, more put together. And naturally I felt like I had to get rid of the beanie because it just did not match his look anymore, and as I said before, I put the beanie on Sammy, so I didn't feel like he needed it anymore. And since I got rid of the beanie, I tried to stylize his hair, have it gelled back so he looked more proper. I also got rid of some of the spikiness in the end of his hair so it looked more, again, stylized and put together. The interesting thing to work with, I considered having it be a tighter shirt to really exemplify his fit physique, because we have seen him, I believe, in a tank top before, and he looked pretty fit, but I didn't feel like that was really needed for this particular design. Kind of like how Ella's dress is real flowy, and I felt like a flowy shirt worked her a lot better. So I decided to keep the general same shape of the shirt. I just made it so that his shirt is tucked in, and I changed the wrist parts into more of this, like, I don't know what you'd call it, formal green cuffs with some circle designs. And at the top I made it a v-neck and added some X cross strings, which Ella also has on her dress, so I thought it was a nice thing to import over. And I also added some dark gray imprint designs on the shirt to make it look a bit more formal. With him being a prince, I decided to give him a cape. I didn't want to put too much focus on it by having it like cover around his arms and stuff, because I thought it would sort of look a bit too similar to someone like Leonard, who already has an entire robe going on, and they already like match each other a lot in like being this whimsical, over the top character, so I didn't want to have too much similarity there. But still, I gave him a green cape and gave him a little green circle button gem to connect the two parts. As for the pants, I didn't do a whole lot because I didn't really think there was a lot to be done. I just made it green to match the green on the cape and cuffs. Got rid of the cargo pants pockets because I put that on Beardo's design. And I also redid the pockets themselves because I felt like they were sticking out a little bit too much in the original design, and I wanted them to be a little bit more subtle since Shawn already has a lot going on here. And I changed the buckle to gold because obviously royalty, prince, gold matches there. And I cuffed up his pants at the end because I changed his shoes into these these medieval prince-like boots, and without it being cuffed, it looked a little informal. And because I gave him high heel boots, I brought his height up a good amount. Don't really know what to think of this design. Shawn looks really odd like this, and I don't know what it is, but there's a certain like deadness behind his eyes. It looks like nobody's really home. I don't know why. I think maybe I made his pupils too small and not centered. I just know that there's something wrong there, and that kind of peeves me a little bit. Besides that, I think this was a fun challenge to do. There have been a fair amount of designs in this video where they came very easily and they look very natural and nice to me, but I also didn't really have an opportunity to be too creative with it, and I feel like this is one where I got the chance to be very creative. So even though it's probably not my favorite design, I don't think it's the best, I really just like how different it looks. Next up is Sugar's character design mixed with Amy's stereotype. As I said before with the Max stuff, this was kind of a weird thing to figure out, especially since I did this one first and I wasn't exactly sure who the target of this bully character stereotype was going to be. So I tried to go very just like typical pretty mean girl of her, especially since I felt like nobody else in the cast has really filled that role yet. So this is what I came up with. For the face, I didn't change a whole lot. I just gave her darker red lipstick to match Amy's, and I also just felt like darker red lipstick matched this mean girl character. I got rid of her eyelashes and brought her eyebrows down because I feel like both of those are very like pageant girl stylized things that were a bit excessive for a character like this. Also, the character that got Sugar's stereotype design, it matched them a lot better. Same sort of thing with the poofy curly hair out. It felt a little glamorized and excessive, so I decided to have her just straight and down like Amy's, you know, taking inspiration there. Top didn't have a ton. I just wanted to try and go for a simple crop top, so I got rid of her arm straps. We colored the top to make it black, and then I decided to add this M design because it looked a little bland without it. I also gave her a belly button piercing because I felt like that. I feel like a mean girl like her probably has a piercing somewhere, and a belly button piercing isn't something I've really done with any of these redesigns, so I wanted to try something a bit new. And I also gave her a pink bracelet. So it was a very small accessory that helped her a lot because her arms look a little bare without the arm straps. I gave her a skirt to match Amy's design because Amy's design also has a skirt, and I used this darker hot pink to match the colors from the M design on her shirt. Also, Sugar has some pink on her design, so I want to do this sort of in between of Amy's red and Sugar's light pink for this hot darker pink. I gave her the same X pattern on her skirt that Max has on his jumper because I thought that was a nice little thing. Combine the two, and I also think it looks very different on both designs, so it's not the big a deal. Gave her a little button on the skirt, and then I also gave her stockings because why not? I thought it looked fine. And as for the shoes, didn't change really anything there, just recolored them to match the outfit and gave her socks. Overall, I really enjoyed this look on Sugar. I think she definitely matches the criteria of this mean girl bully. She comes off very bitchy and self-assured, which is what I was going for. And yeah, I don't think there's a lot I really dislike with this design. I think it touched on all the notes I wanted. I don't really look at this design and think there's anything I should have done differently. Maybe she didn't need the stockings, but I don't think the stockings added is like a DEFCON 1 rating, end of the world sort of thing. And I honestly think I'd probably put this up in like my top 3 of designs for this cast. Next is Jasmine's character design mixed with Leonard's stereotype. Yeah, no, I think it goes without saying that there was a lot of creative visions that had to be instilled here because Leonard is so disconnected from Jasmine. But with that being said, I do think there was an easy path to take here considering I didn't have to make her a wizard like Leonard, I just had to make her a LARPer like Leonard. So when that door opened up, I think the design came pretty clearly to me. Essentially, I tried to make Jasmine look like a barbarian warrior LARPer because with her very tall, imposing frame, I think it was obvious that you don't go dorky like a wizard, you go strong, hands-on LARPer like a barbarian. Obviously, I got rid of the hat because that was an Australian thing that I put on Dave and it didn't really fit for this sort of design. I gave her white dyed hair because of a LARPer barbarian. I figured she'd go a lot more like mythical, old-timey magic look. I basically didn't touch a single thing on her face because I thought she matched Leonard's facial expressions well enough. There was the original concept design I had of her having like warrior mud face paint, but it looked a little excessive, so I got rid of it. There's also another alternate design I have of her with yellow eyes for like yellow contexts, again going into the mythical look, but it looked a little weird and I don't know why, so I decided to scrap it. For her top, I gave her sort of this white fur wool cloak with leather going down her back, which you can see if you look behind her, and then I gave her sort of this black short crop top. I considered having it look a bit more scriffled with cuts into it and stuff, but I already had a lot of gruffed triangles with the wool coating and the green skirt. I also gave her this tiny little yellow gemstone to connect the two pieces of the cloak because, again, mythical wants some sort of gemstone for... Naturally, I gave her a barbarian skirt using a lot of the green from Leonard's design. Don't really know what to say there, you know, gave her a leather belt, gave her a green spiky skirt. Yeah, you see what it is, you know what I was going for. And the shoes are very similar to her original. They basically recolors to match this like lover barbarian look. I got rid of some of the height on the bottom because I didn't want them to look as like bulky as much as I wanted them to look like adventure in the woods sort of vibes. And I also bulbed out the white socks going to the boots a little bit because I wanted to look a lot more like wool, protective, keeping warm. Overall, I really enjoyed this design. I think this is one that has a good amount of creativity. I do kind of wish I would have been able to get those yellow eye contacts to work because they would have worked really nice with the yellow gemstone. I also just think you don't get to have an opportunity to have many characters look so unique with the yellow contacts. But just no matter what I did with them, I could not find something I liked. But besides that, I really enjoyed this version of Jasmine, and I don't think there would be any other character that could get Leonard's stereotype design that would have worked as well as this one did. Next up is Rodney's character design mixed with Topher's stereotype. This one was a little weird because I wasn't quite sure what you'd consider Topher's stereotype. I mean, a large part of it is he's like a Chris obsessed fan, host, wannabe, but I'm not really sure you represent any of that into a character. So I mostly just tried to take some inspiration from Topher's designs and make Rodney look, you know, a stylish, handsome young man like Topher. So this is what I came up with. Didn't mess with his face a ton. I got rid of the freckles on the side of his face because I gave those to Scarlett because I thought they fit her way more than they fit this design. Also moved his eyebrows around to match Topher's kind of like raised eyebrows thing. With the hair, I changed it from orange to brown because even though Rodney would probably still have, you know, be a ginger in this world, probably like watched a lot of reality television and he saw like brown haired people stylizing and wanted to dye his hair like that to match them. That's kind of the thought process. I guess you could also say he dyed it black to match Chris, but that's a little too weird and I don't want to go there. I also tried to stylize his hair a bit more so it looks like wavy in an organized fashion, kind of like how Topher has the comb up. I wanted to have the comb back a little bit. I tried not to go too stylish though because Topher's isn't like gelled back super fashionably. It's just like a normal comb up. Also, I already had the slick back of Shawn's. I gave him the little lines in the side of his hair that Topher has, and I also had his hair go down a little bit more to make it look a little bit more like a mullet, just because I thought that added a little bit more character to his head because it looked a little flat without it. For his neck, I actually gave him the same necklace pouch that Chris originally has because I thought that was a nice detail to take, but I altered the color slightly because I didn't want to look like an exact replica of Chris. I wanted it to be more so that maybe Rodney specifically handcrafted it to match Chris. That's why it looks so similar, but you know, it's a slightly different color and there's also like a little, I don't know, you'd call it like tic-tac-toe scratch mark of, you know, crafty scratch mark to show it's like not well made. He has a pretty standard t-shirt. I try to take a lot of inspiration from Topher's colors, giving him the same sort of light blue, but I gave him much smaller stripes because a lot of other characters already use a lot of big wide stripes, including Topher's redesign, so I decided the smaller stripes worked a lot better. Also gave him a v-neck because Topher has a v-neck and the v-neck's obviously like, you know, stylish, trendy thing, and I showed a little bit of his abs there to show he's like well built because I imagine this version of Rodney would want to show off his physique a little more. For the pants, I just went for normal black slacks because I figured since he wants to be like this stylish host, he'd want to look a bit professional and a bit more mature with like black workplace slacks. You know, you could say whatever. That's what my thought process was. And as for the shoes, didn't change anything, just color coded them to match his design more. Still struggle to really know what Topher's stereotype is, and making this design was definitely hard not having the vision, but I do really enjoy how clean Rodney looks like this. I kind of wish that Topher's stereotype went to somebody like more out of his field so that it would look a bit more odd, but the thing is Rodney's like, you know, he has the elements there to be like a good looking guy, so I don't feel like it was really that hard to make him look good looking, you know, so I think it would have been more interesting if Topher got like Leonard or something, and a simple design like this really fits Rodney, so good for him, I guess. And the last redesign is Sky's character design mixed with Sugar's stereotype. Now Sugar's stereotype mostly pertains to her being a pageant queen, and that was kind of a weird thing to envision with Sky because she is a very pretty design, but I don't really know how you go making her look super girly, but it was definitely a fun challenge and I really enjoyed the way this one turned out. For the face, I changed a good amount when it just came to giving her the makeup design that Sugar has. I gave her the lashes, I gave her the same lipstick color, and I even gave her a little white pearl earring, and the circle pearl is actually a thing I took from Sky's original design where she has that purple pearl necklace. I gave her one pearl from that to match the earring. I could have just kept her the same, I don't know what those are in her original design, like red pepper earrings, but I just think the white pearl fit a lot better for this pageant queen look. Didn't mess with the top of the hair, but I did give her Sugar's circular poofs at the bottom because I thought it fit Sky super well, and since I got rid of them for Sugar's redesign, it didn't hurt to use them here. For the top, I tried to go very simple because there's been a lot of stylish female characters before, so I didn't want to go too overboard, especially considering Sugar isn't exactly like, per stereotype, is pageant queen, spoiled child. She isn't the best looking person, and she doesn't look bad, you know, her getup is fine, but it's also like, you know, a very childish idea of a beauty pageant. So that's kind of why I tried to go here for Sky. I didn't want to be a super elaborate dress. I just wanted a nice little simple dress with a light pink, and I gave it some white trimmings because I thought it looked a little basic without them. And for the pants, I just went for these light blue jeans. I gave her the same little cut in her jeans around her ankles that Sugar has because I thought it was a nice detail to add. And then for shoes, I basically just restylized her original Converse into these pink sneakers because, again, like I said, Sugar isn't exactly like the most stylish idea of a pageant queen, and there's a lot of other characters that already have high heels, so I really wanted to keep the simple pink tennis shoes from Sky's original design. This feels like kind of a weak one to end it on because I don't think there's a ton creative here, but I think Sky matches this look really well, and I do wish I added a little something more, maybe just some more accessories for like a necklace or a bracelet, something like that. But even without an addition like that, this design does perfectly fine on its own. Yeah, and there we go. That was redrawing the characters from PATHKIEW Island with each other's stereotypes. This was definitely the most interesting version of these that I've done because PATHKIEW Island's cast, like I said before, and like many others have said before, has odd characters. With a lot of these characters, I had the issue of them having either a really strong stereotype that I didn't know how to normalize to a level I was okay with, or it had a really general stereotype that I didn't have a lot of creative ideas to work with. And especially with those crazy ones, I feel like they were sometimes lacking detail, but I didn't know how much detail I could give them while making them still look like teenagers. That was the big balance I struggled finding with a lot of these characters. Beardo's, for example, where he looks a little bland and I wish I would have added a bit more, but then if you add a bit more, it's like he looks like a grizzled zombie survivalist, and the premise for the stereotype is already so weird that I don't know how far I can stretch this rubber band. But even though I have a lot of issues when it just comes to the creativity of these designs, at the end of the day, I do think this cast specifically has the best redesigns I've done. Overall, the other cast I did, there was always at least like one or two designs I looked at where I said, I hate that. Like just straight up, there was nothing about it that I could say I like. If you hear that aren't noteworthy to me, there's still at least one thing I can point at their design and say I truly enjoy. And I feel like the cohesion of these designs matched a lot better than they did in previous videos. So this one was a bit difficult, but I did have a lot of fun with it. I'm not sure if I'll continue this into the reboot characters because there's a lot going on there, and if all the designs in that cast are really well done. I really love the character designs, and I also feel like more crucially their character designs don't really match up with their stereotype a lot of the times, so I feel like it'd be pretty lost if I tried to do them. Who knows, maybe I'll figure it out someday. And yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Bye.